No.
The equipment's actually owned by us.
Yeah. So she knows that. Is Nicole going to read that name?
Yeah, can I have two? Yeah. No, just one for me.
And then this is the, just other miscellaneous data they have requested.
Okay, thank you. Okay, or you can, yeah. Whatever. Yes.
Okay, welcome to the City Council workshop today. It's May 16th, 2023. I'd like to call the workshop to order at 5:03 PM. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Laura,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have public comment for this workshop today?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, that brings us to item C for the action item. C1 is the special workshop to continue discussions on the purchase of a Spartan 105 Quint aerial apparatus ladder truck for Fire Station 106. This is capital improvement project number PS-05.
Mayor, before we get started, if I could say something real quick.
Sure.
Great. Well, I don't feel that there's necessarily a conflict of interest for me based off of AB 123 and along with legal counsel. Legal counsel, if you'd like to weigh in, I do feel that I will be recusing myself to make sure that there's no appearance of bias with regards to this item.
So, Councilmember Voigt's husband works for CAL FIRE, but the item that's before the council does not affect his salary, his income. The equipment's actually being purchased by the city, but to avoid any appearance of impropriety, at this point, Councilmember Voigt's going to recuse herself on this item
Okay.
because her husband works for CAL FIRE.
All right, then, thank you for that. With that, do we have a staff report?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So we're holding a special workshop tonight to continue discussions on purchasing a Spartan 105-foot Quint aerial apparatus ladder truck for Fire Station 106, oftentimes referred to as a TDA. It is capital improvement project number PS05. It is currently funded up to $1.8 million. And just as a reminder, in the 22-23 budget, council programmed 1.4 of ARPA funds to this capital improvement program. And then subsequently on November 1st, staff requested an additional $400,000 towards the purchase, and a letter was sent to the county on November 16th authorizing the purchase of the ladder truck. Subsequent to that letter, it was determined that the invoicing from the county for fire services, commonly referred to as Exhibit A, was incorrect and that there were overcharges for 2 engines in that. And so a letter was sent to the county in your packet as attachment B in an estimated amount of $250,000. And in that letter, I requested that that be applied towards outfitting the new ladder truck. Since the May 2nd City Council meeting, new information has been obtained. And I believe that Fire Apparatus Services, who is the county's vendor, is on Zoom with us. His name is Scott Beck. Mr. Beck confirmed in writing on May 4th that the quoted cost of the Spartan fire truck 105-foot TDA was $2,259,521.81. That amount is good until July 15th of this year. And in those discussions, more information was obtained from Fire Apparatus Services, including not only the confirmation of the price, but the disclaimer language included in the quote on attachment C, that any additions or upgrades or a change in the initial specifications will dictate a change order. The quote includes a 5% Sourcewell discount. Sourcewell is a membership consortium that's nationwide that we often use to more commonly referred to as piggybacking. So there is a 5% discount off the MSRP. Mr. Beck also indicated that a 75-foot aerial, for comparison purposes, is $1.6 million. That includes tax and delivery. The 105-foot rear mount aerial, which is not a TDA, is $1.8 million, including tax and delivery. These are all estimates, and exact quotes, should council choose, can be obtained within 7 to 10 days. Delivery can take place in Beaumont. Therefore, taxes are calculated based on the city's tax rate, which is 7.75%. Payment is due upon delivery, and that's estimated at 600 days from the time of the order. There is a prepayment discount of 3 to 4% should the city decide to prepay for the truck. There is a discount offered. For purposes of the region and where other trucks are located, in research, there are trucks located in, there's TDAs located in Temecula, Menifee, Moreno Valley, Jurupa Valley, Palm Desert, and Indio, and then there's one Quiller TDA on order, not yet arrived, in the unincorporated area of Thousand Palms. There's also 2 light trucks located in Paris and Lake Elsinore, and to put into perspective, Menifee's truck was ordered with Measure DD funds, and it is believed by staff, although not confirmed, that Temecula's truck was also paid for with a sales and use tax measure. One alternative that council can consider is to order directly through Spartan, and that has been confirmed that with Mr. Beck that can be done. It is, we would obviously follow the formal bidding process in the Beaumont Municipal Code. And during the May 2nd City Council meeting, while the meeting was underway, I did receive a letter dated that day from CAL FIRE Chief Bill Weiser. He is supporting the purchase of the ladder truck, and he did state in the letter that the department could be responsible for 25% of the staff costs, which is equal to 3 individuals. The city would, with the purchase of the ladder truck, we would need to staff 12 individuals in addition to what we're already staffing at our current station. And so in essence, the chief is committing to annually review that staffing level of 3 people, and therefore the city would end up funding 9 positions. That's attachment E. Also included in that letter are 2 samples of the Exhibit A's moving forward, which city council can expect to see once the new Fire Station 106 is built. There is an error in the last line of the last paragraph before fiscal impact. I erroneously put 4.5 million. That is not correct. There was a budget adjustment done because CAL FIRE came to us in August or September, and we needed to increase our current budget. So we did a budget amendment and added several $100,000. So the current budget in this year is $5,075,684. Just as a reminder, this is a discussion item only. There is a capital improvement program amendment public hearing on tonight's agenda under the regular session, and so there would not be any sort of vote right now. This is merely a discussion for council. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments that have called in?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have one caller on the line.
Okay.
Okay,
wanna
with
take it
that,
now?
I'll open public comment at 5:12 PM.
Okay, go ahead and send the caller through. Caller, can you hear us? Caller, can you hear us? Are you there? Can you hear us? We can call back if you'd like.
Okay, let's go ahead and start discussion, and then we'll come back in a bit here. All right, so we'll open it up to discussion. Mr. White, I see your light. Would you like to start?
Yeah, just to clarify some things here. The cost estimate for the truck that we were originally talking about with the TDA, that 2.259 million, that is with or without taxes? With taxes?
Yep, that is with taxes.
Okay.
And it includes tool mounting for 56,000, sales tax 162,000, and so that's the total purchase.
Okay, any idea what that rate is on that sales tax? It's probably 8%,
7.5%.
same as the city?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I understand about the letter with the 250. Does that mean that in this last paragraph, second to last paragraph, during the May 2nd City Council meeting, says that the CAL FIRE would commit to a one-time purchase of 250. Is that the same 250 that we were overcharged? Is that what's happening, or is it additional 250?
And that's unclear, I don't know.
Okay,
I do have a letter prepared requesting a refund from the county.
okay. I think that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Lar?
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of points of clarification. On the TDA, that takes an additional 3 staff members for that truck? I'm sorry, Chief?
So for any truck company that's gonna be at the station, it takes the additional 3 staff members. So when you open up a new station, the staffing is 9 person for an engine company And for any truck company, it's 12 persons assigned to that fire station. All of our truck companies are what we call 4-person staffing levels. So it has a captain, an engineer, a firefighter, and a firefighter paramedic.
So whether we go with the 105-foot rear mount or the TDA, it's going to be 12 staff members?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Because some of the research I was looking at, they have you add an extra staff member because of the guy that drives in the back. I don't know what they,
The Tillerman.
okay.
So our truck companies are all 4-person staffed throughout the county.
Okay. And so the 6 new TDAs that were ordered through the county, as I understand it, they don't have pumps on them.
Correct.
So,
Well, I take that back. So the ones that are currently in service do not have pumps. They do have one on order that's built to the same spec of what I'm trying to get the city to purchase.
okay, and I'm trying to understand what the benefits of having a pump when we've had trucks in service that haven't had pumps.
So what you don't want to do is open up a fire station and not have an apparatus that can extinguish a fire. So unless you want to put a truck without a pump and then also staff it with a fire engine that has a pump at that fire station, which is how all the other stations are. They have an engine, so they have a 3-person staffing of an engine, and then they have a 4-person staffing of a truck. And that's so when if they have to use, the truck pulls up first on scene and they have to pull a hose off that, or they have to go to the aerial mode where they're going what's called water tower and putting the ladder up and flowing water out of the truck. An engine has to connect to the truck and pump water into the truck and then up through the aerial apparatus. With a truck having a pump on it, we can have that stationed by itself as a lone piece of equipment. It can respond to, be first on scene to a house fire and start a fire attack. It can respond to a vehicle fire. It can even respond to a vegetation fire. That's not the best purpose of using it for, but it can start that initial attack of having hosed. It can connect to a fire hydrant. It has a pump. It can pump water. They can pull attack lines and go interior to a fire.
Okay. And the engine that, because we're going to have we'll have the ladder truck and we'll have another, and I'm getting confused with, is it engine?
So yeah, so an engine is what you have right now at Station 66.
Okay,
So it does not have aerial ladders. It has 3 ladders on it. It has a 24-foot ladder, a 14-foot ladder, and a 10-foot ladder.
okay.
It has limited rescue equipment because of the size of it. And mainly what engine, other agencies call them pumpers. They have usually at least a 1,500 gallons per minute pump on the engines. It carries all different sizes of hose, usually a large diameter hose for connecting the fire hydrants, a medium diameter hose for doing fire attacks, and then they have what we call hand lines, a smaller diameter hose for going inside structures and fighting house fires, vehicle fires. So your engine is for usually doing your fire attacks. Your truck companies are usually used for doing rescues, different types of technical rescues, anything from trench rescues, confined space, over-the-side rescues. Usually you'll have your specialty equipment on them for doing stabilization, either building stabilization on structural collapses, like I said, trench rescues, stabilizing big rigs, being able to lift rail cars, being able to lift big rigs off of vehicles. That's usually what your truck companies are carrying. We use our truck companies for doing our primary search and rescues. We also use them for doing salvage and overhaul. They carry, so when we're going in to attack a fire, they will go in and we will try to take big canvas covers, put people's furniture into the middle of their house, throw these big covers, tarps over them so that their furniture will survive from all the water damage and the smoke, and while they're searching for people. So and then they're also there for trying to take the heat out of the building so it's an attainable environment for our firefighters to go in and fight the fire, but it also helps with the survival possibility for any victims that are inside the structure by evacuating the smoke and the heat out of the building. And that's usually what your truck companies are used for.
Okay. So, and I appreciate all that information. Part of my approach was like, back in the days when you're looking at a new family car, obviously there's a big difference, but you do your research. Dad used to say, well, we're gonna go down and kick tires, right? And you obviously can't do that with a fire truck, but, so, kind of going through, just trying to make sure that our citizens are getting the best bang for the buck, obviously. So I'm trying to make sure that we don't over-purchase a truck, and when I say over-purchase, or get one that's more than what we need, but get one that's gonna last us or grow with us for the next 10 years, because I'm looking at a 10-year lifespan, as you said. I know that you guys will work to squeeze every serviceable year out of it that you can, but 10 years is typically what I'm looking at because of what you had said earlier,
Yeah, I
okay?
think you're probably a 12 to 15-year use for your truck.
Okay. And I think the county is obviously gonna assist us with some staffing costs, regardless of what ladder truck we get, it looks like based on the letter. And it also looks like, when you look at the map of, we've got Menifee that has a TDA, Moreno Valley, Arupa Valley. You've got Palm Desert. Palm Desert has a population that's very similar to ours, it's about 52,000, a little over that. But the other three cities, you're looking at, Movale, I think is over 200,000. Arupa Valley's over 100,000, 104,000, I should say. And then we have, Temecula is 112,000, Menifee, 113,000. So, and what I've read, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the TDAs are really good for more urbanized areas when you're dealing with cities that have a capacity similar to our population and density similar to what you're looking at in Temecula or Menifee.
No, I don't agree with that
Okay.
statement. A TDA is a better truck because of what you saw, the maneuverability
Right.
is a key factor, just being able to get into tight spaces. It doesn't matter if it's a city like Temecula that, or a place that has crowded streets, the TDAs are easier about getting around cars and maneuvering. Or you go to a city that is a little older and has smaller streets. Beaumont having streets that have all these tree-covered streets that have kind of a lower canopy, the TDA has a lower clearance and being able to get through and get around and maneuver in those tight spaces. The TDA, you can maneuver down alleys if you have to. So it's not necessarily based on the population size. A lot of it's based on what type of infrastructure you have and you're developing. It's based on access points that you can get the truck into is what you really need to look on. And you also need to look on what do you want the truck to be able to do. When I do my presentation for you, there are limitations if you go with one of the other trucks with one of the rear mount aerials.
Right.
I believe when you saw the trucks outside, you'll see just the amount of compartment spaces that you have. You have on a TDA, you have 9 compartments on each side versus both the other rear mount aerials, you have 5 compartments on each side. Well, if you take away compartment space, you take equipment off then. So then, it's also based on weight, it's based on, other factors on like what's a better truck. And that's what I've tried to do is not look at what's the coolest thing to buy, what's the most expensive, what's the less expensive. I looked at what is the best thing for Beaumont to invest in for the next 15 years.
Right.
And what is gonna be the most bang for the buck that is going to protect the citizens and also protect the firefighters that are working on it. And in my professional opinion, that is the TDA, not one of the other rear mount aerial trucks. And when I talk to you on the presentation, I'll show you the equipment that you're going to lose if you go with one of the other apparatus versus a TDA. And where we sit in Beaumont, we sit on a fault line. We sit with high pressure natural gas lines running through the area. We sit with major railroads going through the area. Taking off the equipment means that, yes, we have a ladder access, and even though we can probably get to most buildings with the other 105-foot aerial,
Right.
it'll be harder to maneuver around, and there's gonna be points to where it's gonna be very challenging versus the TDA that you watch just drive in, jackknife, and can hit that building in a faster amount of time, which minutes count when you're dealing with fires, But also, we're gonna get on calls, and we're not gonna have, we have the truck, but we don't carry that type of rescue equipment anymore because we don't have the compartment space. So we're gonna be waiting on Moreno Valley or Menifee or Palm Desert to come with that equipment in order to do the rescues. And I don't think a victim should have to wait to do the rescues.
Okay. So I kind of went back, and Mayor, you can stop me if I go too long, so, going back and as a building official in my prior life, I went back and started looking at, I know fire safety specialists are excellent at what they do. They know the codes forwards and backwards. So I know that you guys require a minimum on new buildings coming out, minimum 2 primary points of access. You also maintain drive widths on site for commercial sites. You approve the width of the streets in developments. You also look at the occupancy or the occupancy grouping, and also the number of people that can be, the maximum number of people that can be in a building. And based on that number, you'll determine the number of access to safely get those occupants out of the building. I think, as I recall, almost every commercial building is sprinklered. Since 2014, I think every single-family residence built since 2014 is now sprinklered. And I know that sprinklers aren't going to prevent a house from burning down, but one of the purposes of a sprinkler system is to help the occupants exit the building safely.
Yeah, and to help to keep the fire in check.
Fire in check. One of the other things I know is that a lot of the warehouses or a lot of the larger buildings, because of cost efficiencies, are all tilt-ups, concrete exterior walls, with the exception of the roofs. Right? Roofs are typically plywood membrane. I haven't seen very many steel roofs, maybe steel girder trusses, and then they're usually filled in with wood trusses. So you've got those items that work in our favor or your favor as you fight a fire, and you get to look at those and plan check those. And when you look at developments, you get to make sure those items are implemented, correct?
I would say yes and no, because those are also hazards for us, though, also. Not having the roof access and being able to get up quick to extinguish a fire, because your tilt-ups are held by your roof, the walls are. So once you start losing the roof, the walls start falling in. So being able to get up on the access to a roof to get a fire extinguished quickly, or get a skylight open, or to extinguish a solar panel that they're putting on all these roofs now, is a huge thing for us. And when you talk about the access at the fire marshal, that's, Kylie does that, and I talk with Kylie all the time on the access points, and does this make sense, and we go back and forth. Some of the things that aren't taken into that account is now you have your logistics center, and now there's semi-trailers parked all along. So now we can't get right up against that building. Now we're 40 feet out away from the building, so your ladder has to get longer then. They start putting planters. And I spoke to you about that back when we first started, about setbacks. And setbacks are why we need the extra footage on the ladders. It's because if you took the 75-foot rear mount aerial, we might be able to get up on some of the logistics centers over there.
Right.
There might be 1 or 2 spots that we can hit the roof with that ladder. With the other 105-foot rear mount aerial, same, just because of the way. Because you got to remember that usually if there's fire there, there's usually people there, which means there's cars in the parking lot, there's semi-trucks around, and trying to maneuver, like you saw in the parking lot, that rear mount aerial, and have to spin it around, just like you observed outside where they had to turn around and then back it in. That all takes time, and time with fire you start losing the structural integrity of the building. And that's where you start getting collapse, and you start losing more dollar amounts. Whereas the TDA can maneuver around all that. They can hit multiple access points, even with all those different setbacks, and they can get the ladder up a lot faster, and the guys and gals can go to work and get the fire extinguished, or get a hole opened up so we can get the smoke and the hot gases up out of that building so the firefighters can go in and attack the fire.
So in the county currently, in Paris and Canyon Lake, both have 75-foot aerial trucks, ladder trucks.
No, Canyon Lake is not part of our department, but it's Lake Elsinore and
Okay.
Paris both have those.
Okay.
Yes,
And they're in operation there now, right?
they are, yes.
Okay.
And I'll say routinely, when they do get, large working structure fires, a second truck is ordered, and it's a Menifee or Moreno Valley truck that's going to assist them. But that takes time. When we have the goal is when we're doing a first alarm fire and when we get a call for a fire in the area, we want a truck to be there within 8 minutes. Right now, we are at least a 19-minute response into this area with a truck company. Because right now, we don't get a truck on a first alarm. We get a truck if it's either requested by a rolling request by a battalion chief, or if it goes to a second alarm and a truck is in with that response area. Right now, the city of Morongo, the Morongo Reservations truck is within the second alarm, but it only goes, I believe, and I'm going off my head, up to about, I think Pennsylvania is like the cutoff. So it doesn't go all the way out to Tournament Hills. It doesn't go to the west side of Beaumont. Other than that, I'm probably waiting on Moreno Valley's truck, which is down off of Paris Boulevard and Hemlock, to come up to assist with the fire. So we're looking at a 19-plus minute response. And that's if a second alarm that's once a second alarm is ordered. So usually the person will get on scene, they'll give a size up, and then they'll decide, hey, the fire's getting bigger, or this can't be controlled with the first arriving units. We need to order an additional alarm, 2 or 3 alarms. We'll start getting multiple trucks, but that's all takes time, which then you start losing the structural integrity of your buildings. And you also lose the survivability rates of any victims that are inside those buildings.
Okay. So we're also, the other thing I looked at was our land use ordinance. We've got a 50-foot high max on our buildings. They can go up to 75 foot with council approval. Our multifamily, or buildings like that, are, you've got 35-foot max height, 45-foot max height, or 65-foot, just depending on the use. In the way that it sounds is like anything other than a TDA is obsolete.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily obsolete, but if you're talking about what is best for the city and for the future of the city, the TDA is the correct piece of apparatus to buy, in my professional opinion.
Okay.
It gives you the most chances, not only for being able to hit multiple sides of a building,
Right.
because of setbacks. Even with the heights that you mentioned, we don't put our ladders at the maximum
understood.
climbing angle. They're flattened out. So once again, you're pushing yourself away from the building
Right.
farther. But it's also the other equipment that it carries, which I'll show you on the slideshow, that you're going to lose. And that, it has nothing to do with fires. It has to do with saving people's lives. It has to do with rescuing people from traffic collisions, from if there's any type of building collapse or a vehicle into a structure. It's that type of equipment that the other trucks don't have the room to carry.
Okay. So, the last thing, because what I struggle with is that, we're looking at TDAs in most of the cities that are twice our size. And so when I look at, and I'm trying to understand, so I appreciate your patience with me, but, so when you look at your annual report, I looked at the 2022 annual report for the city of Beaumont. It looks like out of the 5,023 calls, 2% of those were fire-related.
Yeah, it's probably around there, but that's for Beaumont. You gotta remember, this truck's gonna serve also the pass area, so it's gonna
Yeah,
serve more
no,
than that.
I-
And it also serves some of the unincorporated
Right,
part.
and I understand that part of it, but my focus is trying to get the best bang for Beaumont's dollars, since it's their tax dollars that are covering this cost.
But don't think of it just as fires. It's also rescues, which
Right.
are part of that medical call.
But-
Medical calls aren't just going into a house and doing heart attacks and stuff. That's all your traffic collisions, your over-the-side rescues, which we have frequently through Lambs Cane and through the Badlands in the city of Beaumont.
Okay.
So it's multiple things. It's the train rescues, or, unfortunately, they've been victims, but it's all that type of stuff that you're not thinking of, that is in addition to the access with the ladders of the truck.
Okay, and so when I look at the 5th District stats, 5th District wide in 2022, it goes to 4% were fire-related calls. And I understand I'm only looking at fire-related because a lot of the talk is getting access to the buildings and being too far away and getting on top of the roof. And so a lot of the stuff for the TDA that's mentioned, it's primary, I know it's not the only thing it does, but a lot of it focuses on getting to a building that's on fire to get the folks out. And that's assuming that it's occupied at the time of the fire. But, and so that's just kind of the hurdle I'm trying to get over is when you're looking at 97% and 98% or 96% of the calls are all non-fire related. It just seems like, and over the past, let's just say 10 years, we've been okay without it. And so what I look at is, yes, we need a ladder truck. 100%, I agree. What level ladder truck is what I'm trying to figure out in my head. And, you know, in let's just say we get the 105-foot rear mount. What I look at is that gives us an opportunity over the next 10 years to get in our fee, to get developers to pay for a TDA or the larger truck or the top of the line truck. And it serves the city of Beaumont, but it also serves our pass area partners as well. Just like Morongo helps us, I'm sure Calamasa will help us. We have those auto call agreements. We'll all help each other. I'm sorry?
There is no auto aid for the truck.
The trucks aren't included in auto aid?
It's a mutual aid.
Mutual aid.
So that means that
I thought
right
last
now,
meeting, auto aid you said was,
no, I said we have an auto aid agreement with Calamasa for one engine, either on and that's reciprocal on a structure fire or a wildland fire.
Okay.
And right now, the auto aid agreement we have with Morongo is for their engine to be used. We are trying to rewrite the auto aid agreement with Morongo to where it'll include their truck on a first alarm. But like I said, your truck is not going to come to the west side
Right.
of Beaumont. So you're still without a truck company for Beaumont. And you can go with the 105-foot rear mount aerial, but that is not the safest option for serving the citizens of Beaumont. That is, you're taking equipment off that we won't be able to do certain type of rescues because so if you remember the TDA, it stands for tractor drawn aerial. So the rear part is a trailer. So it's pass through compartments. It's compartments that are from bottom to top. You can, when you get to the rear mount aerial, I'm sorry, for the tractor drawn aerial, the tank is up on the tractor part where the pump is. So it's all compartment space along that tractor.
Right.
Carries your ladders, all your equipment. On the rear mount aerials, your tank, your pump, your equipment is all in the back of that truck. So you don't have the pass-through compartments. You have smaller doors that don't go full width. They're smaller compartments, so you can't physically carry the equipment in there. So you take a lot of stuff off. If you just look at the documents that I provided for you,
okay,
the picture with the TDA on it, that is the inventory for a tractor drawn aerial versus your rear mount aerial. 14 pages for your rear mount aerial, 47 pages of equipment for your tractor drawn aerial. That is a big difference on equipment that you're gonna be carrying to calls. And it's all rescue equipment and ladders that you're taking off by going to a rear mount aerial. You're also gonna have higher maintenance costs on your rear mount aerial, and it's also gonna be more damaging on your streets that you've just been improving. On your rear mount aerial, you have one steering axle, and that's your front axle. We've experienced this out in the desert. Back in the days, we used to run a truck called a Grumman. It was a rear mount aerial. We would destroy parking lots when it got hot outside because of the weight of them and turning on parking lots and streets because of the heat. They're just very heavy. The rear tires do not turn, so they kind of pivot, and you wear out those tires a lot faster. And I can't remember the price. It's probably $10,000-$20,000 a year more in maintenance costs and going through tires on a rear mount aerial than a TDA. Whereas a TDA, the weight is, the tractor is longer, or the whole apparatus is longer. The weight's distributed more. You have a front turning axle, and then you also have the axle in the rear that turns, so you're not getting that friction and that drag in the back, so you don't go through tires as much, you don't damage the roads as much, you don't damage parking lots as much. So that's other factors to consider. There's many different reasons why, not just because that's, like I said, I didn't pick the TDA because it's the cool thing. I picked it because I think that's the most bang for your buck with the equipment that we need up here in the Beaumont area.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right,
Thank you.
let's kind of push on here.
I appreciate your patience.
Not a problem. Go ahead.
I wanted to start off with just making a comment. When we had the groundbreaking for our fire station, I got the opportunity to climb that big ladder. And I was quite impressed in terms of the reach and so forth. But it does lead to a question. Morongo's air ambulance, does that do any rescue, or is that only just transporting injured passengers?
Right now, it's only passengers. They've had talk of eventually they want to do, but what you have to remember is that the sheriff's department has the right for doing rescues in Riverside County. It's their first right of refusal. If they're not available, then we also have CHP that can do it, and then we have our airship that can also do hoist rescues.
Okay, all right, thank you. And just a couple of ordering questions. We said, it was said it was a 3 to 4% discount if we were to pay for the truck in advance, is that correct?
3 to 4% of whatever we paid, so if it was a partial payment.
Partial payment? Okay.
Yeah, so I calculated about, if we paid the full 2.259 million, it would be roughly 68,000 to 90,000 discount.
Okay, and if those funds stayed in our account, do we have a projected interest earning on that? That if we decide to not pay it in advance, held onto the money, earned interest on it, or is that set in a non-interest bearing account as a reserve for that? Is there any way to make money on the money while we're waiting for the truck to be built, is my question.
We would have to research that. It's based on market interest
Okay.
rates. Yeah.
Jennifer's jumping in.
So all of our cash is pooled cash, and it is invested, and you're getting about 3.8% rate right now.
Okay,
And so that is within different levels, of course, but that's about on an average.
okay, that's good to know. Okay, thank you. And what would be the benefits? Ms. Gibbs, you mentioned that we could order it directly, so meaning we do not have to go through Riverside County to order the truck?
Correct, and
And what would be the benefits of doing that if we did so? Or are there any?
the benefits to the city are you're ensuring the order is
Okay.
done, which I think is what happened the last time. We thought the truck had been ordered and it wasn't.
Which we get it done, and so if we decided to follow through, we get it done if we ordered it directly, and then we'd meet the, if we meet the deadline by July 15th, then we have that pricing guaranteed.
Correct. We can order a PO, tomorrow if council approves the capital improvement.
Okay. And I think that's what I had for, okay, that's what I had for questions. Thank you.
Right, so let me go back, because I got bogged down in this discussion. I kind of forgot really what the whole station looks like. So we have an engine right now at the station.
At
106.
66.
But I mean at 106. Will we have an engine, or are we only going to have one apparatus?
There would only be one.
There will only be one, so we're not going to have an engine plus this.
It's not budgeted, no.
It's not budgeted, okay,
Right.
so that's.
The
a
engine
bud-
would stay at 66.
Okay, so right now we have the engine at 66, and now we're discussing what's going to go into 106.
Correct.
Okay, and that's our discussion, is what's gonna go in there. But there'll only be one apparatus in there. And so when I look at the numbers, basically, so if you look at the 75-foot aerial, based on that $1.6 million quote, you're only saving $659,000. If you look at 105 rear aerial at 1.8 quote or estimate, you're only saving $459. So as far as money, to me, those are really insignificant as far as what you're saving. I mean, we spent $100,000 on Cherry Festival, so $459 and $659, to me, when you're saying about saving money, to me, that's an irrelevant statement, because there really is no big savings there, in my opinion. What I'm looking at is more for the cost of running that. So if you have any of those other ones, you're still looking at a 3-person team, correct? You said it'd take 3 persons to run the.
That's only
TDA.
for an engine company. For the 75-foot or the 105-foot rear mounts, it's still 4-person.
Okay, so what would be the difference in personnel costs versus one versus the other?
Nothing.
Okay, so
So
that's.
whether you paid for a fire engine to go in the new station or we put a truck, right now, you're committed to 9 positions
Okay.
with the county picking up the other 3.
Okay.
It'd only be if the county didn't pick up the other 3 that it would be those 3 additional for the truck.
Oh, for the truck.
Versus an engine, yeah.
Okay, so technically then we're looking at 3, because, so, and pardon my comment, but I can't count on the county, paying those 3 persons. If they do it once, great.
I
but-
can tell you that they pay for positions at all the other city truck stations. And so they've been doing that for years, paid for.
And it's
those
a great
positions.
trend, and I know they mean well, but with the county having their budget issues as well, I can't use that as a deciding factor. So I won't use that as a deciding factor. What I will use as a deciding factor is the apparatus that's in there. What will it do for us best? It's not gonna cost us, it'll cost us 3 persons more, if I look at it that way. But as far as the difference in price, you're only again looking at $459 versus $659. So I don't really see a cost savings, to me, in my opinion, over a 15-year investment, that's significant enough to say, let's go for the cheaper one and so forth, in my opinion. I'm looking more for the cost of that. So, I had mentioned earlier how we had got here and the price changing from 1.4 all the way up to 2.2 and so forth. Again, that's a discussion we have for another time, I do believe. But at this point, it's my opinion that I think that the 105 TDA is probably our best bet based on the options that it has with it. I thought it was overkill at first. I couldn't see this thing going down every single time you had a call out on a stroke. You're gonna have this humongous thing going down every single time. And I see and I appreciate the stats that you brought up on that, but after looking ahead, which we have to make sure as council we're looking at, it's not just what we're getting calls now, it's what's probable in the future. And with the logistics coming in and the ones that are coming in the future, and like I had mentioned earlier with the high school building and so forth, we have to start taking, in my opinion, responsibility of what we have here, also looking at that 10 to 15-year vision down the road. So whether it'll still be calling out for the next few years, probably still, yes, until those other things start coming in. But I think it's at this point, since we have the money is really not the object, in my opinion. It's more of, what is there any overcost of getting something of this magnitude versus something smaller, or a different choice? And I don't see it, other than those 3 additional ones that we might have to absorb at some point. And that's you just don't know on that. So, I'm supportive of this, in my opinion. I don't like how we got here. Again, that's another story. The price is what it is. When I was at SCAG, I had talked to several people, some from Orange County and so forth, about their purchases. The price is in the same ballpark. So it's not like we're being overcharged or there's another cheaper price. It is what it is. So it's basically whether we think that that's the best fit for us. And it's hard for me as a mayor to say, well, let's kind of pull back, especially when it comes to the emergency equipment, because that's really what I'm looking at the most. And we all saw it. It's not, and I apologize you didn't have a chance to go through the presentation, but we saw it. We were out there, we saw the compartments, we went and saw everything. So that's still fresh in our minds. So it's not like we forgot all of that stuff. We saw the performance, we saw the agility, all of that was witnessed by us. So I don't think really any of that is a discussion. It's more of a discussion on what we're willing to spend, and if we think that is the best fit. And that's, I think that's what we're coming out at this point. So I just wanted to offer my support for this at this point. We're getting towards the last 10 or 15 minutes of our discussion, so I'd like to hear comments based on if we think this is the best fit, if we think one of the other ones might be a best fit and why, or if you have some alternate type of an idea. Again, there's no action here, it's just a discussion on the point. Councilmember White?
So the 250,000 that we talked about at the start, that was we were mischarged because they were charging us for 2 engines.
Correct, in anticipation of the new station opening.
Anticipation of the new station having an engine. So what does that 250 represent? What is the 250,000 for that engine in the new station? What does that cost? I mean, what is that paying?
I don't think I follow you. How much does an engine cost?
No, what I'm saying is we're being charged we were being charged 250,000 per engine. What does that
I follow you now.
250,000?
Okay, so that is, so the engines that we have at the stations are part of a lease agreement.
Okay,
And the lease amount for the engine is roughly, it's in your Exhibit A, the fire engine use agreement is roughly 36,000 per year.
Okay.
And so we were being charged as part, it was like a lease payment. We were being charged to lease an engine that we did not have in service.
okay. And I remember we discussed at the time of getting a new engine, or lease versus purchase. Why are we not looking at a lease on this one? Why are we only looking at a purchase?
My understanding is ladder trucks or TDAs are not part of an engine use agreement.
Okay,
They're one-time costs, and you buy them when they die.
okay.
Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, that's correct, right now, so the engine use agreement is you pay the 36,000, it's gone up over the years. And then what that guarantees you is that you always have a working fire engine, and you'll end up getting, a new fire engine. It also puts you into being able to use a reserve fire engine if your primary engine.
So here we're going to
goes.
pay,
But a
I'm
truck,
sorry
we
to
don't
cut
do
you
that.
off, but
No,
we're
that's
running
okay.
out of time,
Yep.
and you like to give long answers, so
Yep.
trying to move through this a little bit. So we're looking at paying 2.4 million, 2.259, something like that now. And when will we have to buy a new one?
Probably 15 years.
And
12
then
to
it'll be
15
three,
years.
probably be three, more like 3.5 million, or, yeah, 3.5 million. So this generates another question in my mind. This new station is going to have a squad and either a truck or an engine.
And keep in mind, the squad is one, so if you have a squad at that station, you're removing it from 66 and moving it over there.
So the new station will just have a truck,
Correct.
and that truck will be going out to everywhere. And how are we on our squad? I mean, is a squad on a lease, or,
We,
how long have we had the squad?
our
Since
squad
2004.
is 2004.
So it's almost
I
20
put it in
years
service
old?
when I was a firefighter.
So it's almost 20 years old?
Right.
Yes.
When do you get a new squad?
I mean, if the squad is gonna stay around, then it's probably something to look at.
Okay, so I guess let me rephrase that question, because you had a good answer, a quick answer on the trucks. If we were to buy a new squad today, how long would that last before in your estimate, we'd have to buy a new squad?
How long would the squad last?
Yeah, when I asked you
What's the
about the
life-
engine,
I
you
don't-
said about 15 years. So I'm
Oh.
asking you about a squad.
Well, I mean, we've been using that
years?
squad since 2004, so 15, I'd say another 15 years.
Not 30 years on the 2004 one.
No,
right?
no, no, no.
Okay,
No.
so we're already 5, 6 years past what we should be. And what's a squad cost?
I haven't priced those. Mr. Beck, do you know? Is he still there? I don't know what the price of a squad is.
Okay. So if we only have a truck at the new station and the staff is 4, what's the other 8 staff members for? Just different shifts?
I'm sorry, what do you
Well,
mean? the other-
A
don't we
truck-
have a 12-person staff
Yeah,
at the new
so-
station?
Every
It-
truck is
it
required
rotates.
12 people.
So a truck has a total of 12 staffing.
Okay,
So they work, 3 days a week, so you have 4-person staffing, and then they work their days, and then the next platoon comes on. So it's a 3-platoon system is what it is.
okay. And I think Mr. Lara made a good point on the fact that we step up, real quick question. The 3 trucks that are responding within 19 minutes to us, Are any of them a TDA?
Yes,
Which one?
Moreno Valley.
Okay. But the other two are not? The other two, what are they?
So, no, I'm sorry, so two of them would be, one would be Saboba, if Saboba came up and assisted from the reservation.
Okay.
One would be the Moreno Valley TDA, and the other is Morongo. And they're a rear
I
mounted
thought
aerial.
I thought there was a desert one in there as well.
That's, well, that's Palm Desert is one of our, if it's from our department that we own, the closest trucks are gonna be, Moreno Valley, probably Menifee and Palm Desert.
Okay. So the response on a truck to most of the parts of the city would be similar to the response time on an engine?
Correct.
And how long is that right now?
4 to 5 minutes.
So we'd have a truck there in 4 to 5 minutes, and then possibly, if we have to get something, a TDA, for example, that would be 19 minutes after the first truck arrived.
So it's not for a TDA, no. For Morongo's truck to arrive is, that Morongo is the closest truck, and that's about a 19-minute response, depending on what part of the city it's going to.
Okay. You know, I understand what you're saying, Mayor, regarding the cost. And I just look at the fact that I do believe we need to be talking at the same time about a new squad. And the savings that you listed, the 459 versus 659, is the savings on a 75 versus 100. I'm right now, I'm not even considering a 75, but I still think that a 105-foot rear-mounted ladder puts us in a position where we can get the funding for the next step up, which is 10, 15 years, through our development and charging the businesses that come in. Looking at the sizes of these buildings, I don't know that I buy the argument that we need to have, you know, this the same size ladder. I understand you can get better access with when it's mounted in the center, but I'm still of the opinion that if we do save $459,000, that would that probably cover a squad?
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, that would cover a squad.
And right now, we own the squad, we're not leasing it?
We own it.
Okay. I'd rather see getting the 105-foot rear-mounted ladder and then purchase a new squad, which I know is not the discussion tonight, but I don't see how we take that conversation separately when we're looking at the kind of money that we're looking at.
So can you repeat that? I missed that part. Did you say you support the 105 TDA?
Not TDA.
Okay, you for a 105 rear aerial.
Yes, the one that you said was a $459,000 savings,
Okay.
and I would use I'd use that savings to buy the squad. Otherwise, we're looking at probably 2.8 to cover everything. And I understand, you know, the argument is that we have the money, but we have a lot of other needs as well. And I just question spending the additional money. I remember how hard it was when we went from 1.4 to 1.8. And now we're going 2.3, and there doesn't seem to be as much concern as when we went from 1.4 to 1.8. The amount of money we have on hand did not change. So, so that's where I stand at this point. But
Councilman?
Okay, this is Scott Beck. I'm sorry I missed before, but can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to comment on the price of the squad. The squad prices right now vary depending on chassis make and model between $260,000 and almost $280,000. So it's roughly in between there, depending on what you get for a chassis model and basic options and how it's represented out.
And
So
Mr. Beck, does that include tax and delivery?
that does not include tax and delivery. So you're probably looking at right around 300,000 as an estimate.
All right, thank you. Councilman Lar?
Just really quickly, I like the idea of the 105 rear mount, and taking the money, the cost savings, and investing it in a squad. Looks like that would cover that cost. The reason being is when you look at the number of calls, a majority of the calls are paramedic calls. I'm not advocating today that we add another squad, just replace the 30-year-old one that we have now. With the savings, we end up with a new 105-foot ladder truck and a new squad, and I think that benefits the city, at least in my opinion, more in the long run. And it also gives us an opportunity to implement that mitigation fee for fire apparatus. We approved the Nexus study, the money for the Nexus study in our budget meeting last, and it gives us an opportunity to have the developers cover the larger truck. And, you know, it just, I'm having trouble getting over the fact that all this time we've been able to take care of everybody with the equipment that we've had. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to answer your question, I would be in support of a 105-foot TDA truck. I think we have a lot of infrastructure that's been built. We have the need for it, and I'd be afraid that the cost would be just even more out of hand down the road if we were looking at this in 5 to 10 years, or we have a lifespan that would last longer than that. Looking 5 years ago for what we had for warehouses and office space, we had virtually nothing, in my opinion. I know things were in process and in the planning and the construction phase on some of those, but things have changed a lot in the last 5 years. And I think if we don't get ahead of this, we're going to have a problem, and it's going to be more expensive in the future. We have many warehouses that, or several, I'll call it. We're not many in compared to some cities. But I think in terms of the response time and the ability for the rescue efforts that this, that a TD will have, yes, it may seem overkill on some things, but if we lost one of those buildings, and if we lost any life, due to that I think it's worth the cost and the extra maintenance cost and so forth to maintain that I just think we need to get ahead of it. And so, again, 105-foot TDA.
So remind me here, another comment?
Just real quick, if we had 2 squads and we had a second squad at the 106, I mean, the number that jumps out at me is the number of responses that are fire versus medical. And if we had a second squad at 300,000 in the station 106, we would get much faster response times with EMT, correct?
No, everything is ALS for us, so it's with a paramedic. And
Oh, I'm
and
using
if
the
you
wrong.
put another squad there,
I mean,
then
you're going to get a
looking at
squad there
over-
faster than the truck.
I mean, the truck can drive the speed limit just like the squad. I mean, we're supposed to obey the speed limit, so it's got a little bit better
So you don't see
acceleration.
you don't see any benefit in having a squad at both places.
No, I mean, if you ask my recommendation about the squad, then with your concerns of it being overkill, I would move the current squad over and run it with the TDA, and then leave the engine at 66.
Okay, that was all I had.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And then you're also, if you did another squad, you're looking at another, because you'd have to staff that with 6 bodies, and you're looking at additional costs for the personnel, which is probably 1.4 million, 1.5 million for
So
just the personnel.
So remind me then, by the time that 106 is completed, obviously there won't be a truck ready because they're 18 months or some out.
Trucks are 600 days, according to Mr. Beck.
All right. So remind me again, we have, according to coverage, a truck that will be in there.
Yeah, so I had talked with the fire chief and asked if we would be able to use one of the reserve light trucks. It's a 75-foot truck to just kind of, so we had a truck in the past that had some of the limited equipment until we were able to get a TDA fully equipped. He said that, if we had one, that he would support that. So as long as there was one available, then that's what it would do. Even our trucks that go out of service, if one of the trucks is already being used, a reserve truck in its place, and they can't, then a lot of times they'll jump onto a fire engine and have to respond on an engine until a reserve truck comes available.
And here's the reason I ask that is because based on our discussion, based on our confusion, and based on some of our still questions that we have, it's almost worthy that we stop and take a step back and look at it. And I don't want to say go and develop a plan, but we're going to need a little bit better answers. We've got too much willy-nilly going on here. Let's possibly move that, let's possibly move that, how about doing this? Plus, we've got cost overruns that are coming up that I want to see some numbers on, because we're looking at an $8 million some dollar possible budget coming up on this, with the new CAL FIRE stuff. So could we, I'll ask staff, could we, and I'll ask council if they're interested, have the chief give us a plan on what he thinks is best for the city, based on a couple of different scenarios. What you mentioned about bringing the squad over, I like that idea, because I think it covers some of your ideas about, well, if we have a lot of calls out, then that could cover that in that area. And I haven't looked at the stats, so I don't know what areas are being called more than others. So these are the things I'd like to look at. Where are calls being done? Which station's servicing that? Would it be better to serve from this one? Would it be better to serve from that one? What would happen if we put that here and that there? These are questions we really don't have answered yet. And we're trying to make a decision on a $2.2 million thing versus a $1.8 million thing, and maybe some of that could be answered based on this kind of a plan or an outline or a vision or whatever you want to call it, so that we kind of understand where are we getting everything served from, where are the calls coming from, what would serve best. Is that something that we're interested in, or we think that we can go ahead and move forward now? I mean, because I thought I was all set, but now that we've talked about calls and numbers and ratios, I'm kind of interested to say, well, I don't want to just go and jump and buy a truck and then find out, well, wait a minute, maybe it was better if we got a squad, or, maybe, I don't agree with the saving the money, put it here, because again, we put $1 million in Pennsylvania, we throw money everywhere, but when it comes down to this, I don't understand why the council's so apprehensive about $400,000. I can't understand it. I can't fathom why we're really nitpicking about that, but that's another story. So my question is then, should we spend some more time looking into some details, or do we think that, no, I think we're ready now? Because it's coming up in a few minutes, so.
May I ask a quick question?
Quick comments down the line. Go.
So for Chief, for Station 66, we have an engine and a squad.
Correct.
Are there different teams for each of those?
Yes.
So if a squad gets called out, the squad team goes. If an engine gets called out, the engine team goes. If they both get called out, they all go.
Yes.
Okay. So if we put a squad in the new station, we need staff for that squad, plus, and if we get a truck, we need staff for the truck.
Yes, but that's not what I would do. I would move this squad, the current squad and the staffing, to the new station. One is that helps with what one of your concerns was on the overkill, or just that perception. Also, it does cost more in fuel and stuff to drive that truck around, but it also helps make up a bigger team for doing the rescue. So when we have rescues like a trench rescue and over the side rescue, you have the extra staffing, you have more people that are responding with that truck in tandem as a task force to go to those type of calls.
Okay, and then just the response time, just depending where the incident is, it really doesn't change a whole lot if it's coming from Station 66 or the new one.
No, because what you have to remember is that even if the engine and the squad are both sitting in quarters and there's a call at 8th and Beaumont, if there's one of our other engines that are in the area that's closer, it all dispatches by GPS by what we call AVL. So the closest resource is going to go to that call, not where they're positioned at the stations.
Okay.
If everybody's in the stations, it's still the closest resource is what they send.
Okay, and then last question, I'm changing the topic a little bit in terms of, if I can, Mayor, just one question. In reference to what Mr. White brought up about future development fees, what do we have left for build out for potential warehouses? And could we collect something like that, or did we miss the boat in staff's opinion? Do we have the opportunity to collect those resources, or have we missed the boat on future development for more warehouses to help pay for a new truck?
So most of the projects we have that are on the books right now have requested a development agreement from the city. And that is something that the city mutually can enter into with the developer if both parties so choose. And during that process, there's, it's basically a negotiation of the developer has a list of things they would like to see, or asks of the city related to their entitlement. And then the city has the opportunity to also make some asks of the developer. So we would have the opportunity to ask for support in different areas that would benefit the city, whether it be for something like this or whether it's some other project that we would like funded or something else where we could then move money around from one project to, something else. So we have the opportunity to do that. We do currently have studies, like Nexus studies in place as part of our development impact fees that speak specifically to fees we collect for things like fire facilities or, railroad crossing and things like that, things that we've discussed here before. But again, the development agreement is optional and it's mutually entered into, so it is an opportunity for the city to make asks.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Mayor, to close out my comments, I am still in support of the 105 TDA, and I also think we should get it ordered by July 15th on the deadline.
All right, thank you. Councilmember White?
I think the analysis that you talk about is important to find out where's the best place to put the squad. And we're going to get, my understanding now from what you're saying, I didn't understand this before, is that if the squad and the truck were at 106 and you had a call, you didn't have to send both of them out to every call, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I still would prefer the direction that I'd mentioned before. I haven't changed my position on that, but I think the bigger question is to you and Mr. Finn. If we go through the analysis, we do the analysis, are you going to change your mind? Because if you're not, we need to order the truck.
I'm not. Probably not.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, anyway, for time's sake.
So that was my only comment as to, yes, we need the analysis. Do we hold off on a truck, whether it's rear or TDA? I think that.
The only reason I brought that up too was the fact that you were talking about an additional squad or moving a squad.
Yeah, we need to buy a new squad.
That was what that talk came from, not my decision on the TDA.
Okay.
Councilmember Lara?
Mayor, I appreciate the effort in listening and your offer to go ahead and redo the analysis, but the concern that I have with the TDA is it's not a truck specifically for Beaumont. Only Beaumont taxpayers are paying for it. It's going to be a truck that covers a wide range of calls, as the chief mentioned, outside the city limits of Beaumont. So we're buying a truck that's going to fit the county. If I looked at a map, we've got Moreno Valley on one end, and you've got Palm Desert on the other end with the TDA trucks. We're going to be filling in the middle. And that's what Beaumont's going to pay for, is they're going to pay for a larger truck that's got more equipment on that we haven't needed so far. I'm sure the 100-foot ladder truck is going to have more equipment than what our current engines do. But the concern that I have is that we'll be paying for a truck that's going to be used for the county. You've got Thousand Palms is getting a TDA truck. They've got 8,000 people in there, but it's unincorporated area, so the county's picking it up. You'll see that on your bill next time. So that's the concern that I have, and that's why I'm leaning towards the 105-foot rear mount truck and putting the extra money that we save into a new squad, because I know also, talking to the city manager, that we're spending a lot of money on maintenance for that squad because it is so old. So, and I want to make sure that we have a reliable truck or a reliable squad that can respond, because that's the majority of the city of Beaumont calls.
So where, based on that comment, where was discussion of just putting a regular engine in there then? I mean, if that's the case, we might as well just copy what we have.
I don't know. I don't know where that came
So
from.
is that something that we want to entertain? If we're not ready, or we can't come to a consensus, or we're divided on which one to get, then maybe it's time just to go and put an engine so that we have an engine there, just like 66 here, and then, so we have it going, and then come back and meet this again so we can figure out what we're gonna do.
See, I don't think that'll change. And so I will support the TDA, but I just,
No, you
because
guys-
we're going to need the truck. I just would rather have the developers pay for it rather than the citizens of Beaumont. And it's a no, in my opinion, and I'm not a firefighter, it's an overkill for the city of Beaumont at 55,000 population, where you're putting TDAs in 200,000, 100,000 population with much more density. That's all.
And no, a question to legal. When we have development agreements and we have asks in there, can those asks be to reimburse for costs the city has already incurred on safety equipment?
It could. It's a development agreement, it's a contract to parties that mutually agree to the terms. It could be just a payment. And the city of Beaumont's done that in the past with the Olivewood development, I believe. There was a cash payment made as consideration for the city granting the land use entitlements in that development agreement.
But with that said, if we were to pay it up front, there's nothing to say we can't get reimbursed from these ideas that you bring up, so that we feel that we aren't paying for it. It was the developer that paid for it, but because of the 600 days, we can get it moving down. So just to throw that out. Okay, well, any other comments before we conclude this workshop?
Mr. Mayor, we do have a caller on the line.
Oh, the caller came back, yes. So the public here, comment period is still open, so we will entertain comments at this time.
Rudy, can you send the caller through, please?
Of course.
Hello?
Caller, can you hear us?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay, this is Ron Roy, waiting over an hour. Not so fast, okay? Now, I've always believed that the city council has made a historic mistake when it approved over 10 million square feet of warehouses in our town. One reason is that the city would not obtain adequate mitigations from developers to pay for the impact of warehouses on fire protection and suppression. This agenda item proves my concern. The types of fire suppression equipment and deployment are different for a high cube warehouse, often exceeding 50 feet in height, with a high fuel load inside, than they are for the thousands of single-family residential homes that predominate our city. For example, as we are finding out, fire suppression equipment for warehouses is far more expensive than it is for homes. Now, recent warehouse fires in the Inland Empire reveal that fire agencies let the warehouses and their contents burn rather than preserve their contents. In other words, containment over preservation. Now, if this is the case, why is the council considering purchasing a $2.6 million tractor-drawn aerial TDA Quint with a delivery years out, which is being considered largely for its 100-foot ladders, the only length adequate to reach the high cube roofs of our warehouses? Also, I'm concerned that this diesel-emitting vehicle that's built to last a lifetime contradicts the city's Sustainable Beaumont Climate Action Plan, which calls for all city vehicles and equipment to be powered by electric, hydrogen, and other climate-friendly fuel sources. Now, to cure the obsolescence here, a better option might be the Spartan Vector electric fire truck, which is 100% electric powered and protect fire crews and the environment from air and noise pollution. Also, industry leader Rosenbauer has an all-electric fire truck, the RTX, which should be considered. As for the 10 million square feet of existing warehouses in Beaumont, it's time to arrive at firefighting techniques that are not only effective, but also budget-friendly. Beyond the existing sprinkler system requirement in these warehouses, the city needs to look into other types of on-site firefighting systems. For example, fire hoses, fire pumps, and site-specific aerial ladders on a dolly or trailer should be installed in every warehouse property which range from 20 to 50 acres in building size. Also, developers warehouse building permits, conditions of approval, and developer fees should be adjusted accordingly. Don't say no. Do more research. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Close public comments at 6:20 PM, and with no further comment from council, we'll conclude our workshop at 6:20 PM. All right.